Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, July 29th. LA Galaxy getting ready to get back into the swing of things as the League's Cup tournament kicks off for them starting on Wednesday against San Jose. We're going to talk about that, get you ready for that fun and excitement there. Galaxy will wrap up their group play on Sunday against Chivas Guadalajara, so we'll watch for that as well. And then the big news, of course, is Johnny Perez, Marco Reus. We're going to talk about that, get you updated on all those fun things. There's some other little LA Galaxy news nuggets that we're going to throw in there, but we are glad to have you aboard. Helping us out tonight with Mr. Kevin Baxter still away in Paris for the Olympics is Alex El Nino Ruiz. Alex, how you doing, buddy?
Hey Josh, super excited to be back here, back-to-back weeks. So, finally getting my reps in. Maybe coach is believing in me. Might become full-time starter,
I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
I don't know. Maybe we just move things around like the Galaxy did with Paintsel. We're thriving, but Jovalic is coming back eventually. That's the whole thing.
Okay, so you're just gonna send me out on loan?
Just maybe
down
for a year.
Team?
Maybe we'll see what happens. We don't know. No, glad. It's nice to have a little break every once in a while. Especially, I think it's better this year to have a break, Alex. If you're an LA Galaxy fan, you're sitting there and you get to stare at the standings for the whole break and the Galaxy going into League's Cup, and you'll get to stare at the standings when those happen as well. The Galaxy top of the West in the standings. 8 games now remaining on the docket for the LA Galaxy in the regular season. So, a lot of things that we've touched on and talked about and sort of covered, but it's nice it's almost nice. The timing was nice in terms of, hey, let's take a deep breath. Let's regroup. You look at the LA Galaxy getting guys like Gaston Brugman, Dejan Jovalic some time to get back, Aude time to get back. I would say Johnny Perez more time to get time back, and I think that's the case. I think he's healthy as well. So we're going to talk about all that, but it's nice to step away for a little bit, isn't it?
For sure. I think, heading in to the AllStar Game, right, where, you still got a little Galaxy action with Ricky Puig and Gabriel Peck playing in the second half. And then, this first round of League's Cup where you can kind of just watch, relax your feet, enjoy it a little bit. And I'm sure the players had a good time, being able to have some bit more time off. And, this week now I got to come in, prepare for a game for Wednesday night. Yeah,
it's all sort of wrapping up and heading that direction. Excited. We saw the All-Star Game. We saw that Gabriel Peck was a late addition. We sort of, I don't know, this has become old hat. I don't necessarily get excited for it. I think if you're an LA Galaxy fan, you're watching this saying, please don't get hurt. No matter what happens, Ricky Puig don't get hurt, Gabriel Peck don't get hurt. Don't play too many minutes. You don't want you to be the guy who has 60 minutes in there. You want the guy who's maximum 45 and hopefully closer to like 22, 33, somewhere in that line of playing time. But the fun stuff was sort of the skills challenge. We got to see Ricky Puig. I think he set a new record in his passing.
For I think fastest time doing the challenge. Which to be honest, it looks pretty simple, but I know it's not. But it just looks so easy on the TV.
Can MLS set that up so that way we can have a shot at it? I would like to give it a try. Ricky had his technique down. He was and he just blew everybody away. The fact that was the fastest scares me. I quite honestly. Why is it so hard? These guys are professionals. Shouldn't that be easy?
I know it looks so easy too. You just scoop the ball up, pass it. Come on, guys. I'm a little delusional right now. Thinking,
of course.
I could cut it. I could do it. Yeah. No, I can't.
No, absolutely not. So you had the skills challenge in there. MLS lost that. Then you had the MLS All-Star Game, as Alex alluded to. Ricky Puig playing in that game, starting the second half, going 45 minutes. I think was probably the best player for Major League Soccer in that second half. You had Gabriel Peck, who came in, I think in the 60. Hold on, I wrote it down. In the 63rd minute or 65th minute, somewhere in there.
Around halfway.
Yeah, 66th minute sub. So he got about 24 minutes worth of play in there to sort of come in and play in there. He showed well as well. Ricky had a shot that went off the upright on the far side, created a whole bunch of chances. Looked very comfortable playing against international talent and doing that as you would expect him to do. I think everybody in Major League Soccer, and I saw some even posts on Reddit, Alex, that were like, "Hey, I was at the All-Star Game. I got to watch Ricky Puig play, and that dude's electric." So people are appreciating the Puig. You need to appreciate the Puig. You have to be frustrated by the Puig sometimes, but you need to appreciate the Puig. And right now, I think the people are appreciating. Ricky is playing well. He's got a lot of confidence. He seems like he's fit. He's in form. I think a week off is only going to help him. Now it's 2 games in Leagues Cup that you sort of have to dodge injuries as well. And this was, last year, Gaston Brugman went out with a season-ending injury in Leagues Cup. So these are not non-consequence games. You just hope, quite honestly, you hope they're over quickly, but with the group that the LA Galaxy are in, I'm not sure it's going to be over that quickly for the LA Galaxy and getting out of it.
Yeah, and you don't want to have 3 weeks with no soccer, right, heading into the final stretch. I mean, that's not ideal. You don't want these guys to cool down. You don't want them to kind of lose their sharpness and their form, especially guys like Peck and Puig and Pinto right now. He's finding his form, right? You don't want that to go away. You don't want them to go a couple of games, without playing. So I think we'll definitely, looking at the group following the Chivas and San Jose game, we'll talk about it later, but it does look like we'll see a bit more LA Galaxy matches in Leagues Cup.
Yeah, very well could. One of the things that did happen, and we were talking about sort of it being an off week and what are the LA Galaxy going to do? Well, the LA Galaxy took a little chance to have a closed-door scrimmage with Bournemouth, who's over from the Premier League and doing a U.S. tour. I think they played Arsenal later on.
Yeah, and they watched the Galaxy game against Colorado. I remember seeing a lot of the players.
That's right.
Walking down there, I got to dap up Dominic Solanke. He didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was.
That's all. I would imagine he's used to it. Tyler Adams was in that group as well, if you're a U.S. men's national team fan and watching Tyler Adams in there, but coming through. So the Galaxy and Bournemouth played, apparently, to a 2-1 loss for the LA Galaxy. Also, apparently, and by the way, this is so much like apparently, like nobody wants to talk about this game and nobody really cares. But apparently, the LA Galaxy starters played about 45 minutes and it was 1-1 at the half, and then they rotated through in the second half, and that's whenever Bournemouth scored that second goal. So they were able to do that, but it's good to see that the LA Galaxy is still staying, in shape. You get a good scrimmage against a really good opponent. That can only help you as long as you don't get injured as well, right? You're doing all this stuff to try to sort of be in training. They're in preseason. A lot of the Mexican teams are in preseason, sort of getting ramped up to what they're going to be as their season starts and doing all that fun stuff. So very much a fact of the LA Galaxy, much more in form going against teams that are in preseason, but I think good matchups for all of this and getting it. I do find it hysterical that like these closed door scrimmages are so like cloak and dagger. Oh, well, we're not going to tell you what the score is. We're not going to tell. We don't want you to know anything about any of this stuff. It's humorous on a level that I think it doesn't need to be. It's like, who cares what the score? Nobody cares, but everybody cares. That's the thing. Everybody wants to know what it was.
The fans will forget about it in a month, right? But everybody wants to know. I mean, look, it's a good thing for the LA Galaxy, right? I think Greg Vanny, in one of his press conferences recently, said, the guys, they just want to go out there and play games instead of being in practice. And I think this is good for these guys to kind of continue to stay in shape. And look, whenever you can challenge yourself against Premier League opposition, you should take that opportunity. And again, Josh, like you mentioned, starts playing 45 minutes. I think that's just good, just to get the legs moving, kind of seeing a different look from a different team. But yeah, I mean, it's a respectable result, 2-1 loss. It's not like they got blown out 4-0.
No. And again, if the starters were 1-1 at half, we look at all those preseason games. Remember when those preseason games didn't mean anything, Alex? We were like, do these mean something? But they never mean anything until they do.
Nobody's thought about it since.
Nobody's thought about it since because the Galaxy have had a very, very good season to date. But no, it is an important little step in sort of this off time that the Galaxy have these scrimmages. They stay ready to go, and now they can transition into a game at PayPal Park on Wednesday night, where they'll go on to take San Jose in that first game of the Leagues Cup. So That's one of those things to watch as we go through, is how the LA Galaxy sort of handle the Leagues Cup and everything going on. Now, the big news, and again, I don't think we're going to have a super long giant show tonight, based just on the fact that there isn't a lot of stuff, but there is an important developments happening. And over the weekend, I was watching as it became more and more evident that, as we had talked about on this podcast, and I think, Alex, you and I have talked about it. I know Hammer and I, Kevin and I, but we've all talked about basically looking at Johnny Perez as a possible piece that you could move to do what you wanted to do in this summer transfer window. And everybody was looking at Marco Reus, when Reus is going to be in. And so the rumors started flying more and more. And one of the things that popped up was this move for Johnny Perez. Now, this is what we know on Johnny Perez. Definitely a loan. That loan to Nashville. We don't know what the fee is. We don't know if there's a buy clause or anything like that. As of right now, I don't believe there is a purchase clause at the end of it. But it is for a term of 12 months or 1 year, basically summer to summer, right? So whether that's whenever this transfer window opens again or however it is, figure 1 year, we'll just say it's 12 months. And Johnny Perez will be off to Nashville. Now, Nashville dealing with a season-ending injury to Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, former LA Galaxy player as well. Remember, everybody was really upset about losing him. And now nobody says much about it anymore. And quite honestly, even before he got hurt, the fact was the LA Galaxy, I think, did a pretty good job replacing him and sort of finding that. But Johnny Perez will now be headed to Nashville to replace basically Tyler Boyd, or we assume to replace Tyler Boyd and sort of slot in there and possibly get some more minutes. Here's the other thing we can confirm. One is that it's for, basically a year, that it's a loan option. We don't know how much the fee is that's coming back, but whatever that fee is, I can confirm it is enough to bring in Marco Reus. It is enough to open up cap space for that. So there were a lot of reports out there, and earlier today, I know lots of people were sort of following them, but they were looking at the Marco Reus news. Cesar Luis Merlo was on it, and sort of has been on it. He's the one who's reported it was about $350,000 to Charlotte, which the LA Galaxy have to pay in order to get Reus off of the discovery list for Charlotte and come over to the LA Galaxy, and then also talking about possible Reus arrival. Now, he had Reus coming in on Tuesday. In my report this morning, I said Tuesday was not the day. I said it's too soon. And then we have seen it sort of fall in there. Emmanuel Veth was in there as well, saying that there's no complete agreement between Marco Reus camp and the LA Galaxy, and Reus will certainly not fly to LA on Tuesday. This makes it sound worse than it is for me, Alex. It's like, well, there's no agreement, and we're not coming, and we're angry. It's just, this is how this thing is going to play out. I want to tell everybody that these things are always way more complicated than you think they are. It's not just a matter of signing. It's not just a matter. And I will say that I have knowledge that the Galaxy have gone to visit Marco Reus, right? Like I know that, and that's been happening. That's not new. That has happened in the past. And so we're sort of seeing this come to fruition now, right? We're seeing the LA Galaxy and everything being put together, but three things have to happen in order for all this to go through. And I think that's sort of what the holdup is. That I don't know if they all have to happen at the exact same time, but if you think about it, if you're the LA Galaxy, you need all of them basically to happen at the same time, or you really do, because you're not going to give up Johnny Perez if Marco Reus isn't coming. You're not going to pay Charlotte $350,000 if Reus isn't coming, right? So all these things, and if Reus doesn't want to sign with the LA Galaxy, then none of that stuff is happening. They're all reliant on themselves. And so I wonder if they're sort of putting like a TP up in MLS offices right now, where it's like all three of these things have to go at exactly the same time, so that way everybody's good. You make the deal with Charlotte, you loan out Johnny Perez, that gives you the cap space room, and then you sign Marco Reus, and all that stuff happens within minutes of each other. Everybody signs, and it all happens. It feels like this isn't one of those stair-step deals, Alex. It feels like everything has to be ready at once.
Yeah, and we talked about this last time on the podcast, kind of how the complications of the salary cap. Just how, because of this league thrives itself on parity and wants to, be able to kind of have all the teams playing on equal footing. You can't just throw money at Marco Reus and say that's it, right? You got to make these calculated moves. And like you mentioned, Josh, it feels like we're seeing a bit of a domino effect with all these moves that are going to come in. I mean, the Johnny Perez loan very much seems like it's done, but the club hasn't announced it yet. There's videos of Johnny Perez, I think, at the airport as well. So,
Yes.
he's already getting ready for that move.
Yeah.
And again, like you mentioned with the Marco Reus thing, it's never as easy as it is like in the video games on FIFA when you sign a player or a free agent. Agent fees, you got to, accommodate for how you're going to live, where you're going to live, and also kind of just finding the good structure of the contract, right? I mean, this is likely going to be Marco Reus's last ever deal as a professional football player. So, I mean, he's going to be very much in tune in what he wants from this contract. And like you mentioned at the start, it's not like this deal is like completely over and like, it's all blown up in their faces. There's still time. It's just about executing these moves at the right time and then just being able to make sure that everything else falls in line as well.
Yeah, and again, we're dealing with, as you put it so eloquently, before we started there, Alex, you said, a rule that's been around since the Bush administration, dealing with the discovery list and everything. Bottom line is, I'll tell you, the Galaxy have a history, and it's not like a long history, but I know of at least one other instance where a deal was in progress, it was going to happen, and the discovery list or the allocation list got in the way of things, right? And when that happens, I mean, who's to say Charlotte isn't going, hey, that $350,000. We decided last night we were hanging out. We decided we wanted $400,000 now, and it's like if you're the Galaxy, it's like that doesn't work, right? Because everything else is predicated on the moves you made, and you probably loan Perez out for around the amount of money that you can get back, so that way you can have Royce come in with the salary cap. It's not like you're going, well, I want X number of dollars over whatever this is. They were creating salary cap specifically for Marco Reus. We all know this, and we've known this for a while that the Galaxy had to do something to create that space. At some point it was that they wouldn't have to move a player, and we thought maybe that would stick. And there were still worse scenarios being played out that didn't involve moving a player. That means other things, though. Sometimes that might mean, things happen with maybe Chris Mavinga. That's always an interesting one because I don't know if they've actually written that contract off or however that goes. And, he's being paid by MLS, but are the Galaxy, and are there still salary cap implications? And if you can get anybody to pick him up or do anything, can you shift him, and how does that? So that's the sort of non-player move implications that you could have done, or maybe you could have moved the contracts around in order to sort of make some space, create something. It seemed like all those things were in play. I've had conversations about those things, and ultimately it was Johnny Perez. I don't want to toot our own horn. This was not like we were able to see into the future, Alex. Johnny Perez was a legitimate person to move because he has value, but he doesn't have like a ridiculous amount of value or anything like that. But he has enough value where you can see that somebody else might want him. The bottom line is Nashville's hurting. They need somebody. I don't know that they need somebody long term, and maybe they fall in love with Johnny Perez and they put an offer in, right? Whenever it comes to time. But we also know that the phone has been ringing for Johnny Perez in the past, and those numbers have not been small. So the Galaxy have decided against selling Johnny Perez, which I think they could have done, and instead they're going to loan out, and he's going to be back in a year, or they have the ability to bring him back in a year. At least that's what it seems like until we have seen the full contract. Maybe Nashville has a buy option, but I guarantee you if there's a buy option for Nashville, it's not cheap.
Yeah, and I like this loan move for Perez for multiple reasons. The first one is you're going to finally see him get a lot more MLS minutes because Nashville FC have suffered a lot of injuries this season. Got a new coach in BJ Callahan, and I think they're going to try to be more expansive. Under Gary Smith, they're a very defensive-minded team, bunkered back a lot. Now you can, go vertical. And a player like Johnny Perez, we've seen it in his limited minutes with the LA Galaxy where, he's dangerous in those spaces. And I think being able to kind of showcase himself there, still at the MLS level, will be good and even better to attract a higher transfer fee from Liga MX teams, especially now considering MLS just changed the rule where you can get up to $3 million in general allocation money instead of, I think, 1.5 or 1.3 million.
Yep.
So you're banking that this moves his value in the market, that you can get more money from clubs in Mexico, because let's be honest, Chivas, I know, is definitely calling him all the time. Chivas has been doing that for so many players within MLS, and they've, Daniel Aguirre, Fidel Barajas, like young players like that. They've been hunting them down. They've been trying to sign them, obviously, because, they're a team that only plays Mexican players. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a great move down the line eventually to grow his market value and get more general allocation money once that transfer comes through, because knowing the LA Galaxy, they're not a team that likes to, grow within when it comes to attacking players, right? You rarely ever see players from the academy kind of grow up and, be starters for 2-3 years. Usually they're backups, role guys. And I think if you can sell Johnny on, that's the ideal scenario.
Yeah, there's some risks involved here for Nashville, I think, by taking this on, right? Certainly with Johnny and his injury history that he has, it seems right as he's starting to gain any sort of momentum. And, people were being critical of Greg Vanney not playing him. Greg Vanney played him. Johnny Perez got hurt, right? And he's young. He's 21 years old, going to be 22 in January. So there's some risk there involved for Nashville, which is it seems that as soon as you start giving Johnny some real minutes in these adult player situations, that he's not as rugged as maybe you'd like him to be, and you would expect that he's going to develop that ruggedness over these next 2-3 years. That's whenever he's going to be able to develop possibly a little more physically and be able to handle the rigors of the professional game maybe a little bit more. The other thing for Nashville is this very much fits in with what they like to do, because you're talking about a domestic player, right? It's not an international slot that they have to bring in. Right now, LA Galaxy have his homegrown rights, and I believe that they would stay with the LA Galaxy as long as Johnny doesn't sign another contract with somebody else outside of that. So Perez will go there. He's a domestic player, doesn't take up an international slot, and if you've watched Nashville build the way that they love those domestic players. They love being able to spend a lot of money, quite honestly, on those domestic. I mean, Walker Zimmerman's a perfect example. They go out and they get a center back, and he's a domestic player, and they paid him a lot of money to be a top of the league, center back for them. So this fits in with what they like to do. I'm not as big a believer as I think others in the chat room that Johnny Perez is like, he has to be bought. Like Nashville's going to buy him. Now, Alex, you and I have looked and we've talked to people. There's too much value in what the LA Galaxy want to do with Johnny Perez. And as you just mentioned, selling to Mexico seems like a lot more lucrative than selling to anything inside the league. And so if indeed it does happen, and something does happen inside the league, I think you can almost assume that means they either matched or went above what any of the Mexican teams have been offering, because we've heard about him being, picking up the phone and being a wanted commodity by other teams for a while now. So the Galaxy knew coming into the season Johnny Perez was a wanted commodity by a lot of people. I think in this particular case, the chance to clear the cap space and get over to Nashville and sort of be able to do that inside the league with the loan. And I don't think you're going to be able to loan to any of the Mexican teams. I don't think that's what they wanted, or if they would, they wanted one.
It would be like to buy.
It would be to buy, right? Absolutely. And so I think inside the league gives the Galaxy a little more time to see and play things out. I mean, we've talked about it, Alex. I think it makes sense that the Galaxy are always going to probably have some top-tier talent on the wings whenever you look at what they want to do, bringing in big internationals, Gabriel Peck, Joseph Paintsill, right? Quite honestly, even Diego Fagundes within the league. Within the league, right? You have guys. That's what the Galaxy are. They're going to have the big players in those big spots, in those big positions. The way Greg Vanney likes to play, those are his playmaking spots, right and left wing, and that's where Johnny plays. So there was already an uphill battle for him, but the Galaxy, and I'm not a believer that in order for your academy to be successful, you have to have guys playing for your first team. Your academy can be successful when you're selling guys and getting money and putting that money back into the team and back into the program and going out and getting other players that you can then buy and purchase. And you keep this rolling. And that's really what Will Kuntz has talked about, is going to Uncle Phil once and saying, hey, Phil, I need $20 million. But what we're going to do is we're going to have these guys, then I'm going to sell these guys, and we're going to get that money back every time. I'm not going to come and ask you for money all the time, right? And I think that's what you've seen. I mean, Gabriel Peck, if he continues on this sort of, star launch that we're seeing him right now, could be a record transfer in Major League Soccer. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves, but I think right now, if you went to sell him, you might be in the $15 to $20 million range overseas, and I think the ceiling is much, much higher than that for him. Yep. So even
that minimum is already a profit for the LA Galaxy, right? $5 million.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and that's crazy to think about. So I think also with Johnny Perez, I think you can all sort of put yourself in that position, is that the Galaxy have developed this player. They've looked at him. They've had him for a while. They know what he is. They're really high on him. They know that there's probably not going to be a ton of space for him to play. But loaning out to Nashville gives them those I always call it adult minutes, the senior team minutes, right? Playing with the big boys. This is it. This is upper level stuff that you have to do. He'll get some playing time in Nashville because they're hurting. It probably didn't cost Nashville a whole bunch of money, because I would imagine Nashville, just like many teams in Major League Soccer, are cap tied up to a certain point, and they have other needs that they need to address. So the LA Galaxy are able to open that up and make that happen. Galaxy want Marco Reus. They've wanted Marco Reus. This is still one of those deals. Again, the tweets, I don't like the tweets and sort of the position they're sort of saying the LA Galaxy are in, like it's not done and there's like something that's in peril. I don't think anything is in peril, as we've been saying all along, Alex. I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen at this point. I think we're much past the 75-80% chance it happens. I think we're into the 90% chance it happens. I think everybody's just waiting to tie it up. But the big deal is that the LA Galaxy have a sort of motto, which is, it's not done until it's done, and even when it's done, it's not done, right? It's one of those. So they're not going to jump the gun on this as much as everybody would like them to. It's going to be done when it's done. And nobody's going to celebrate, and nobody's going to jump up and down until Marco Reus is in an LA Galaxy kit running out onto the field for the LA Galaxy, whether that's in Leagues Cup or coming up in the final 8 games. I mean, does that sound like that's reasonable when you look at Johnny Perez, what he's able to do and what the Galaxy want from Marco Reus?
Yeah, I mean, look, the addition of Diego Fagundes, a move that they made within the league, right? He's a guy who can play that 8. He can play at the 10, the winger. I mean, he provides so much of that depth, and you have a guy who has over a decade of experience within MLS, and that's extremely valuable. Johnny Perez, very much, for the last couple of years has been a project, been a player that the club wants to develop, and I'm pretty sure he's a player that, they do see potential in him because he has those flashes whenever he plays. But again, it's LA. It's a team that's going to demand and be in win now mode for a lot of the time. There's not very much a chance for you to be patient and develop these players. So being able to get him those minutes in Nashville, being able to raise his market value, and because he's a homegrown player, whatever Mexican team comes calling, that's going to be all profit. And I think that's the ideal scenario for the LA Galaxy for Perez. And if you can kind of do that while also getting in Marco Reus, who could elevate this team to championship contender, I mean, that's a win-win in my books.
It's still sort of up in the air about how Royce sort of fits in. I mean, I don't think there's an issue with it. It's just, what are you going to do and how are you going to do it? Is he going to come in place for Ricky Puig whenever you want to pull Ricky Puig out? Is he going to come in and play in for, a Diego Fagundes whenever you don't want Diego playing out there? Does he come in for Mark Delgado? What about Gaston Brugman, who is back in training and out working, and you would expect that Brugman possibly even makes some returns during Leagues Cup, depending on how far they go. And if not, we'll come back for the last 8 games. Although, man, I think that dude shouldn't play any Leagues Cup games. Just wait until it comes back and sort of get him. It feels like they're going to have this huge amount of midfielders, and maybe that's not a problem because you're starting
champagne problems.
Champagne problems, is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, they have a great midfield. I mean, obviously having Royce is wherever he plays in the attack, he's going to be a commodity because you can't, have that kind of ability, that talent, and just that technical ability. Like, that's never going to be, a liability for this team. You're always going to take that whenever you can. But Greg Vanney gets paid the big bucks to make these decisions. We know he's a very tactically oriented coach. We know he loves to analyze the game. So this move right here, very big for Greg Vanney, and I think his potential future for the LA Galaxy because he's in the final year of his contract. So probably the biggest test for him so far, just how is he going to fit this team and how is he not going to break this rhythm? Because right now the Galaxy are in a good groove.
Yeah, it feels like they are. Don't know about the break and everything that happens with the break, but certainly in Leagues Cup, it doesn't look like San Jose is flying. It didn't look like Chivas was playing very well. That game was a 1-1 draw that went into penalty kicks, which San Jose won. So if we're looking at the standing sort of in the group right now, it is San Jose has 2 points because you get an extra point for winning in a penalty kick. And then Chivas has 1 point for the draw. The LA Galaxy have 0 because they haven't played. That being said, if we look at this game, and we'll start to preview it just a little bit here, where the LA Galaxy, let's see, did I even bring it? No, I didn't. Why would I put the actual one that we get to watch tonight or on Wednesday night? But when the LA Galaxy play on Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. up at PayPal Park against San Jose, really it's going to be about getting a win. And if the LA Galaxy get a win in regular time, not in a penalty kick shootout or anything like that, the Galaxy will have advanced into the next round, basically, because it wouldn't matter what they did against Chivas at that point. Even if Chivas won, then they would just be tied, and it would be a goal differential difference to figure out who was first and second, but San Jose would be out, right? So, and that's how it goes. Top 2 teams advance from each group, and then to the knockout round, and everything goes. I'm certainly San Jose is in a position, Alex, where as I was going through looking at all the horrible things that have happened to San Jose over the course of the season, having just 14 points, they have only 10 points at home and 4 points on the road. I mean, it's been miserable for them from the very start. Coaches fired, all that fun stuff that's been going on. This seems like this is a chance to rebirth them in this tournament, and it was the same for the LA Galaxy last year. If you remember, it was like, well, maybe if the Galaxy can just make a run in Leagues Cup, it'll help them out. That's where San Jose is at right now. There's absolutely nothing else they can do this season that is going to mean anything in the league with, let's see, how many games have they played? So they're at 25, so they have 9 games remaining, right? With 9 games
they have
remaining.
nothing to lose. San Jose has nothing to lose in this tournament at all. I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs. Their players right now are pretty healthy. They're trying to get everybody in the best of form, and Leagues Cup definitely is the one opportunity San Jose has to, genuinely have a good moment this season.
Yeah. So you look at all this. So when the Galaxy would go through, basically, it would be that ability to outstage San Jose and sort of put them in their place, be like, okay, you're done, and push them down. And then you go against Chivas on Sunday and you have that game, and that one sort of stands on its own merits as well. If the Galaxy want to be top of the group, then they can win that game. I don't think that there's anything in Chivas or San Jose where I would sit there and say, oh no, these are teams that can't be beat or blah, 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 or anything else. As we've talked about, I think only one Liga MX team so far, and I think, are there games tonight? There's not getting
no games tonight.
No, but we're coming up on more games on Wednesday, and that'll play out. But as it stands, I think only one Liga MX team has won so far. And that's it. And the rest have been Major League Soccer. And this really goes to the imbalance that we're seeing. And it's funny because you look at CONCACAF Champions League, right, or the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and we see the imbalance where it's MLS who are at the very beginning of their season or in preseason going against, a lot of teams, not just from Liga MX, but from others in the region that are in their season, that are playing through the middle of their season and are in mid-season form. And here you have, MLS teams. Now it's MLS teams who are in mid-season form, who have been battling now for months, who understand the pace of games and everything that's sort of going on. And you're catching the Liga MX teams off on their sort of preseason entry into their season. So it's not balanced. It's not fair. The fact that the Mexican teams don't play any games in Mexico is also a farce. And listen, it is a money grab. I know that there's been supporters groups who have been boycotting because they're saying you chose this over the U.S. Open Cup and we'd rather it be the U.S. Open Cup. I think San Jose and Chivas had a attendance of over 50,000 at their
around
game.
there.
Yeah, right? So
they played at the 49ers Stadium up in Levi's.
I mean, listen, I'm going to say it wasn't a lot of San Jose fans, and that's to be expected, I think. And I think if you're going to the game on Sunday, one is I don't think this tournament gets anybody that excited that you really want to go to the games, and I'm waiting for it to change. I'm waiting for people to be like, nope, this is an important. I remember going to CONCACAF Champions League games on Tuesdays or Thursdays at Dignity Health Sports Park or StubHub Center or Home Depot Center, whichever it was, whenever the Galaxy were playing there. And there would be a Champions League game, and there would be 4,000 people there, 5,000 people there. It just doesn't ring like the regular season does for whatever reason. I think you still have that problem in Leagues Cup, but the bottom line is that the Mexican teams will draw in the United States. It's the reason that Mexico plays a lot of their national team games in the United States. In fact, I think most of their national team games, except for like qualifiers, whenever they think.
Yep, only qualifiers they play in Mexico, and I think there's an upcoming friendly against the U.S. They're going to play in Guadalajara.
Okay, so there you go, right?
They'll play one game in like the first time in like 10 years, I think. Like that's not a qualifying. But yeah, onto that point with the Liga MX teams. I mean, we've yet to see the big teams in Mexico like Tigres, Monterrey, America. Obviously, they have the bye, Cruz Azul. The only big team that did play was Pumas, and they kind of put up a fight against Austin. I think that finished 3-2. Right. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if this record stays the same. But, the Liga MX is a 16-17 team league compared to MLS, where there's like 30 teams, right? Yeah. So the imbalance is there.
Yeah. So we'll see how that continues. Again, the Galaxy with the chance to advance with a regular time win over San Jose, basically guaranteeing they will go on to the next round, where their place would then be decided by the game against Chivas. But I would say don't take San Jose lightly just because their backs are against the wall and they already won the first game. And really, a win against the LA Galaxy would dictate them being advancing to the next one. So, my whole take on Leagues Cup is it can be compelling soccer. There can be something. I don't know. I don't think it's been great so far. I don't think it's any of the stunning games that you really expected. But those usually tend to work their ways into the tournament a little bit. So we'll see if that suddenly pops its way out. But for the LA Galaxy, it's an opportunity. I don't know if it's a huge opportunity. I don't know if it's a distraction, Alex. And that's sort of. Some people have claimed that, like, possibly even going after the Supporters Shield is a distraction to what the ultimate goal is for the LA Galaxy. And I can understand sort of looking at that. We look at the standings where the LA Galaxy are right now. We talked about it first in the Western Conference. They have 2 games in hand over LAFC. I had 2 or 3 little trolls come in and wanted to remind me that once LAFC played those 2 games that the Galaxy would no longer be in front. But I'll say this, that if you look at the records for both of these teams, the only difference right now would be 2 draws. The Galaxy have 2 more draws than what LAFC have. So realistically, being these teams seem like they're fairly even on paper, maybe not when they play each other, but fairly even on paper, that at least right now, those 2 games in hand could end up being losses or draws. There's no guarantee for any of those things. That being said, I would put my money on the fact that LAFC probably jumps over the LA Galaxy whenever those games do get played. But remember, they're going to have to play those games in the same amount of time the LA Galaxy have their 8 games remaining, right? So it's going to be condensed. It's not as easy. They have looks like some reinforcements that they're going to be pulling in for them. But to me, and somebody was pointing out, and I thought it was a good comment. They said, you can't consider yourself a contender, Alex, until you go and you beat LAFC. For me, it feels like the story is being written on that, right? Because there's one more game that gets played between the 2 coming up in, let's see, hold on.
September.
Yeah, I wanted to pull up the the actual day for that. In September 14th, the LA Galaxy will host LAFC at Dignity Health Sports Park. That's going to be one to circle. It may not mean much in the general, hey, how's everything going to finish? It's going to be a lot mentally. I think if the Galaxy can get one at Dignity Health Sports Park, we're expecting, and maybe that's a bad expectation. Maybe we're putting cart before the horse here, Alex, but we're expecting these 2 teams to meet in the playoffs at this point. It just feels like it's all written in the cards that that's how it's going to go. The Galaxy haven't beaten LAFC this season. They lost 1 away, 1 at Rose Bowl, and then the final one that they're playing will be at Dignity Health Sports Park in the regular season. But where everybody sort of seems to be, and even the MLS pundits are pointing, it feels like these 2 teams are going to match up against each other in the playoffs. It's going to be a mental challenge these last 8 games for me, and I think it's absolutely true. I think you can't say that you're contenders for anything until you can prove that you can beat them this season, and they're going to get better. The Galaxy hopefully will get a little bit better too. So what are those teams going to look like in September, and how big is that game going to be? I think for the hearts and minds of everybody that goes along there, it's a big one for the players and everybody else. You don't want to be the team that can't beat them. Right, that's going to be, if you're going into the playoffs and being like, well, we can't beat them. It's not going to happen. That's sort of that mental defeatist thing that's going to happen if you do meet them in the playoffs. We can't beat them. But the playoffs are weird. Where do you think the Galaxy rank in terms of the Western Conference and teams they can beat, teams they can't beat?
Yeah, I think they're definitely at or a little below LAFC's level at the moment. I mean, we've seen the attack be one of the best in the league. The midfield, I think, obviously with Ricky Puig and, guys like Delgado and Cerrillo, very underrated guys. Brugman, when he comes back, they're going to add a bit more bite to that midfield. It's all about the back line. We've seen the last couple of weeks they've improved. We've seen McCarthy continue to be one of the better shot stoppers in the league. Mickey Yamane been consistent on that right-hand side. Guys like Neil Garces, they're going to add something different to the LA Galaxy back line once they're healthy and continuously playing. But yeah, I mean, once playoff time comes, anything can happen. And I think the story right now is being written for the LA Galaxy to kind of have their crowning moment, whether it be in the Western Conference Finals or semifinals against LAFC. I mean, for me, I think that the West is going to run through LA. I think that one team from Los Angeles will be representing the Western Conference by the time MLS Cup comes around. I think the other teams in the Western Conference, they don't scare me as much.
Right.
Compared to, an attack led by, Peck and Paintsville and an attack led by Bouanga and Giroux, right? Like, maybe Salt Lake, you can make the case. Colorado, not really.
No.
Vancouver, they don't really scare me too much. Maybe Portland, but, I mean, they also allowed a ton of goals.
But so, I mean, you saw the Galaxy match up against Portland, and that was a game where the Galaxy were at a disadvantage, having played midweek and Portland not. And then coming into LA, you thought Portland had the advantage in that game. And the Galaxy, despite the score, and I watched that game, the Galaxy felt like the better team for large portions of that game. And that's interesting to me because I would have had Portland in terms of power rankings near the top in the Western Conference whenever they came in. I'll tell you one that I sort of looked at whenever I was looking at stats is Seattle. Seattle has the best defense in Major League Soccer, or best defense in the Western Conference right now. They've only given up 29 goals. All right, so it's pretty good. By the way, the Galaxy are in 6th with 36. It's not like they're that far off with giving up goals and everything. But Seattle is one where I say don't sleep on them because they have the experience. They know what they're doing. Brian Schmetzer, despite the fact that I never thought he would be a good MLS coach, I'm really good at guessing these things. He's outstanding, and he knows how to make the adjustments, and he knows how to get those guys to play. And they started really, really bad. They had some injuries and some other stuff.
Yeah.
They're coming into, I think, a dangerous form for them because they seem like they can be a good team, and they've taken points on the road. Quite honestly, Vancouver's a really good road team this year. 21 points on the road for Vancouver right now. Houston, a good road team. Good thing the Galaxy will play them in Houston instead of on the road, right? Just some other ones, but I'm with you. I don't know that any of those should scare the LA Galaxy. I think LAFC is the one team that sort of has them over us.
Yeah, they're boogeyman right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's all going to be about these final 8 games, this final 10 stretch of matches across the league. That's going to really determine who's in good form, who's in bad form. Like if the Galaxy, don't win their last 3 or 4 games, you're obviously going to go in there not feeling too great. But if there's other teams in the league that are winning their last 4 games in good fashion, then yeah, the conversation changes. But right now, from what we've seen in MLS in the Western Conference specifically,
right,
aside from LAFC and like I said RSL, there's not many teams that scare you that you're like, man, I'm gonna stay up thinking about what they're gonna do to the LA Galaxy. I feel like the LA is at a different level just compared to those other teams.
Yeah, you can.
But all that can change, like I said, in the final 10 games.
In a heartbeat, always. Here's your schedule for the rest of July. Just coming up, the San Jose game on July 31st. We'll go into August, where the Galaxy have their other Leagues Cup game against Chivas de Guadalajara. That one is at 7:30 p.m. on August 4th. And then the LA Galaxy on August 24th will resume MLS season play, regular season play against Atlanta. This is your pay attention alert. Pay attention. August 24th, Corner of the Galaxy might have something going on. We can't tell you what it is yet, but we might have something going on. So plan on being at that game. All right? Plan on being there early. I think we'd love to see you. As soon as I can release the details, I'll let you know. But everything's looking pretty good for that. So I'm excited. I hope you're going to come back for August 24th, and what a party it'll be to sort of re-kick off the next 8 games and all that fun stuff. So again,
I hope the Galaxy don't get to League Cup final, right? Because I think the League Cup final is 2 days before that.
Then, would they move it? Like I remember, like they've moved.
They
games
did that last
before.
year with Nashville and Miami. They moved their games. So.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. So anyway, that's the 24th. August 24th is whenever we come back, and then once you get all the way through August, you get into September. You're away to St. Louis. You're home to LAFC. You're away to Portland. You're home to Vancouver. You're away to Colorado. Such a ridiculously tough game to play away in Colorado. And then you're home to Austin.
Those are the most forgettable games, like at Colorado. Like I can't remember any highlight from the last 4 or 5 games in Colorado.
Do you remember when Colorado knocked the LA Galaxy out of the playoffs?
Yeah, I remember the penalty shootout, right?
Yeah. It was a weird one.
Like that's only it. Nobody ever remembers the regular season games against the Colorado Rapids.
Do you remember whenever the Colorado Rapids won an MLS Cup? Or was that before you? Do you have any recollection of the Colorado Rapids winning an MLS Cup and possibly the most boring MLS Cup ever to be played? And can you name their opponent in that match?
Was it Dallas?
It was. It was FC Dallas. Indeed. Do you remember where it was played?
I think it was Toronto, right?
It was in Toronto. It was cold.
There we go.
It was cold.
I'm on fire right now.
Do you remember how Colorado won? It was in extra time. What was the play?
I don't know, but I'm gonna take a guess here. Set piece off corner.
It was an own goal. It was a Dallas own goal, and Colorado won. And I was in a bar hanging out with some of my Galaxy peeps, and we were watching the game, and we were laughing at how horrible the game was. So yes, probably the worst MLS Cup ever to happen. Fun story. Later on, like a year later, I was on a flight to Denver. And I had some LA Galaxy stuff on. It said Herbalife across it, right? And they're like, oh, do you sell Herbalife? And I'm like, no, I don't. I go, I run a podcast and blah, blah, blah. Started telling the whole thing. They're like, oh, the LA Galaxy, they had David Beckham. I'm like, yep, David Beckham was on there. And they're like, I wish we had an MLS team. I'm like, you do. It's called the Colorado Rapids. And they're like, oh, really? Are you any good? I'm like, you won an MLS Cup last year. Is that good? It's pretty good. So I remember that was a fun airline flight. But no, Just what you're right, that Colorado games there always seem to be midweek. they're always like midweek games. Like, and you're like, oh, they're
That-
going to go. Yeah.
And the Galaxy always seems to rotate their lineup for that game. So that's why I kind of like forget about it.
Yep, 100%. No, that is absolutely what happens in those midweek games and all that fun stuff. The LA Galaxy are tied for second with most goals scored in the Western Conference. They have the fewest losses in the Western Conference, tied with LAFC and RSL, all with 5. However, if you go over to the Eastern Conference, Miami, Columbus, and New York Red Bulls all have 4 losses. So Eastern Conference still turn out. I feel like the LA Galaxy would be just fine in the Eastern Conference this year. I know everybody wants to be like, oh, the Eastern Conference. Columbus scares the crap out of me because I've seen their upper level, but it's like, are they going to be there all the time? I think Columbus is a really good team. Cincinnati can be a really good team, although they've had some injuries and some stuff that has sort of slowed them down a little bit. Miami, I mean, you can't. It's hard to like
Best
sleep
roster
on.
in MLS history, probably.
It's hard to sleep on Miami. They have 16 wins. 2 more than the LA Galaxy. The top for wins in the Western Conference is 14. LA and LAFC both have those 14. Then it goes to Salt Lake with 12 wins. Looking at that, Cincinnati has 15 wins. Columbus has 12. New York just has 10, but they have 11 draws, and they've lost just 4 times. I mean, that's a ridiculous number of draws whenever it comes. LA Galaxy have 7 draws. Tied for second, I believe, in draws in the Western Conference. So a lot of stuff upcoming for the LA Galaxy, trying to figure out exactly where everything fits in these last 8 games. But first, everybody has to go through the ceremony of Leagues Cup and doing all that. So, just to wrap up Leagues Cup and to wrap up this show, because again, I don't think we have much more to share with you. We gave you all the updates. You have the breaking news that Johnny Perez will be on a 1-year loan, or summer to summer, however you want to characterize that. Don't yell at me whenever it ends up being like 11-month loan or something like that. Whatever, it's from summer to summer. We can confirm that. We can confirm that the amount of money that they're moving Johnny Perez for will cover Marco Reus moving in, and that Marco Reus moving in still seems like a very likely thing to happen, despite people like writing panic tweets. I think everything's fine. So we've given you that, and we sort of pointed you at what Leagues Cup is going to be. Now, do the LA Galaxy take Leagues Cup seriously? Is this an important tournament to them? Are they at a point right now, Alex, where you don't mess with anything, you let them go out and you compete the way they always compete?
Honestly, if I were the LA Galaxy, I'd kind of just treat this like the All-Star game. Play your starters for 45, then kind of rotate midway. I mean, they've got some decent players with depth. I mean, you want to see a bit more of Tucker Lepley, of Carlos Garces, Novak Mitrovic, right? He got a lot of the Leagues Cup minutes last year. Mm-hmm. Mauricio Cuevas, he's been really good. You kind of want to see him for extended time. I mean, I don't know if you want to see Miguel Berry, but I mean, you can play him there.
You can see Miguel Berry if you'd like to. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why you're paying, your tickets to the Leagues Cup to watch Miguel Berry. And I think also too, it will be interesting to kind of just see how's the rest of, the atmosphere of Leagues Cups kind of develops. Like you mentioned, Josh, it feels very much non-organic. It feels very, very pushed towards you. I'm interested to see the turnout once Chivas come to Dignity Health Sports Park. I think, like you said, it's definitely going to be a lot of Chivas fans, just because the Mexican teams always seem to get so much support.
Yep.
But I don't know. It's just weird. For me, if I were the coach, I would probably just treat this like the All-Star game. Like I said, just, starters go out there for 45 minutes, come back in. I mean, the Galaxy have an easy path to advance in the group stage. So I feel like you can kind of treat it that way.
Well, if you're interested in getting any super chats in, now would be the time. Have about 10 minutes left, or we'll wrap things up early. Lasso had one $5 super chat. Evening, gents. Really looking forward to seeing the blonde god. That is, of course, Marco Reus soon. This could be what gets the G's over the top. Go Galaxy. So that was from Lasso. We appreciate that. Always fun. Any other questions you'd like to, hit that super chat button and come on into this last couple of minutes, and we'll try to get some
I will
answers
answer any question.
No, you won't. Don't play that game.
Oh.
You don't know. Trust me. There's like it's like talking to teenagers in here sometimes. All right. So there's some other stuff. I know that the varsity jacket, I think, dropped today for the LA Galaxy. The pre-orders for that. So I saw people getting in line for that.
That's great.
Yep. It looks really nice. I think there's a very limited number that are going to be sold. So if you got one, congratulations. Even if you didn't get the size you wanted, I think you're probably still in on a collector's item. Somebody said, why would you need a jacket in Los Angeles for like it gets cold in October. I don't know.
For playoff time, guys.
It's playoffs. Whenever it starts to get a little chilly and stuff like that, it's a lot of good. So you could wear it then. So a lot of good stuff is sort of going on, and just the merch drop and everything that's happened. I know Jalen Neal was at Pele Soccer in downtown Disney. I think at one point that was actually supposed to be Gabriel Peck, but then Gabriel Peck went to the All-Star game. That is what I had some information early on that's who it was going to be. So don't know how that changed or when it did, but Peck did go to the All-Star game, and Jalen Neal ended up going.
Poor guy had to fly out to Ohio.
Yeah, instead of going to downtown Disney, I'd rather go to downtown Disney any day, I would like to point out I did go to Legoland last week, right? So whenever I have time off, I went to Legoland. So it was thrilling, exhilarating. My wife and I said there's zero chance I'm going to Disneyland. It's going to be too hot. I don't want to do it. Let's go to Legoland, which is right near the coast, closer. So it's going to be like 10 degrees cooler. So we nailed it, 79, 80 degrees. Very nice. And let me just say, I was telling some people on Twitter, if you're thinking about going to Legoland, Alex, reserve and ride is the way to go. You think it's going to be a lot of money for nothing, and let me just tell you, I did not wait in a single line the entire day. And when you have a 4-year-old and a 13-year-old who are trying to kill each other the entire time, it's nice that you can just walk on rides. One, it wasn't that busy. Two was reserve and ride really went. Like they say that they make you wait, so you check in on the app.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait 15 minutes. You're like, okay. Well, my kid was like, I'm going to go play in that playground for 15 minutes. I'm like, sounds great. And then the way they'd go and play in the playground, they'd come back. I'm like, hey, guys, we got to go. We're going to go over to the ride. Walk in, step in, wait for 2-3 minutes, tops. Away we went. So, man, that was my excitement. I will say though, nobody wants to ride the Technocoaster with me, and I am now starting. I might bring a listener with me next time, just so somebody will go on the Technocoaster with me, because my 13-year-old's like, no, it was scary whenever I was 6, and I'm like, yeah, you're 13 now.
It's not scary anymore.
Yeah, you're not. You're gonna be fine. It's not a scary. It's just the biggest roller coaster there. That's all. So anyway.
Yeah, they have it. Yeah, Legoland's nice.
Yeah.
I like it there. I mean, I'm a big Lego guy. I got my if I could show it up here.
Oh, yeah.
McLaren
Nice.
F1 car Lego.
Nice.
So I got a bunch of F1 stuff over here. So yeah, Legoland. Yeah, I love that place. Been there since I was little. And yeah, like you said, the Technocoaster. First time you go, you're like, oh man, it's a little scary. Then Alex grows up, goes to Six Flags, goes to Knott's Berry Farm.
Right.
It's pretty tame.
Yeah. No, the Technocoaster is small. The only other soccer Lego story I can tell you is that a long time ago, 4 years ago almost, I bought the Manchester United Old Trafford, right? I bought it, and I was going to put it together, so I took it to work with me, and I'm like, I'm going to put this together. So I ended up putting one stand together and never put the rest of it together. My daughter, who is excellent at putting together Legos, every time she would come visit, and like during the summer, she would start to put more and more of it together, and so it would like slow. And she could, if you just sat her down there and she had 10 hours, she would have finished the whole thing in one sitting, but she did it a couple hours at a time. So we finally, and I'd say we, meaning I didn't do anything, we finally finished Old Trafford when it does. So she told me that it took us 4 years to get it completed, and she said you could build a real stadium in that amount of time, and I said that is correct. So just shout out to her for getting my Old Trafford all set together and put together. So that's what I got. Anything else that you have there, Alex, or are we good?
I think we're good. I mean, we'll see what happens Wednesday night. I mean, Joseph Paintsell, that's the one thing I'll mention before. He scored in every single game against the San Jose Earthquakes. Like, he is their, boogeyman.
I like it.
So I'd expect that streak to continue given his recent form.
It is going to be I'm just interested to see how seriously everybody takes it. I just want to see, show me what the starting line. If it's an A lineup because Greg's like, we need to get work in and everything, I'm in. I'm like, yeah, I get it. The whole deal.
I mean, teams across Leagues Cup have rotated their roster, so it won't be just the Galaxy thing. Like almost every team that's in this competition is like mixing up the roster and whatnot.
The one thing I will say, and certainly looking at some of the messages in the chat room, is that you need to get another player. Like, you can't just bring in Royce. I'll tell you, and we've told you this before, don't expect that. The Galaxy would have to get very creative in order to get another person in, and creative means moving people in order to get somebody else in. You're going to have to move 1 or 2 people in order to move anybody in. And that includes a U22. There's still a cap space hit. They just moved one player in order to make just enough cap space that way Marco Reus could come in. It's not impossible, and I'm not going to say it's impossible because I was specifically told it wasn't impossible. It just would be a real tall task, and I think the Galaxy are going to be very, very determined not to screw themselves for next year. They want to make sure that this year, it's so hard though. You are in a race for MLS Cup right now. I know it doesn't feel like it because the Galaxy have been so bad for so long. I mean, you're in first place in the Western Conference with 8 games to go. You are in a race for MLS Cup. It's hard to pass those up whenever there's 30, another team next year, but 29, 30 teams in a league one team out of 30 gets to raise a cup now. It's not one team out of 20, one team out of 24, as it goes. The chances of winning MLS Cup decline every year they add another team, right? So it's hard to say that you can't go for it sometimes, but I think that the Galaxy, as of right now, are saying we think we have a really good team. We think we can compete, and if we get hot, I think we can do it. But other than that, we want to preserve what we're doing for next year, understanding that we understand those shortcomings now. Most of the guys are going to be back. We know the guys who aren't going to be back, and we're already planning for that, and we have a really good shot at what we want to do next year too. So, toss up. Ready to see how it's all going.
Yeah, Will Kuntz can't work miracles all the time, right? He's done so well so far, but I mean, with the salary cap, you got a limit, and I think that it's going to be extremely hard if you're going to do that. And look, you don't want to mess with the team chemistry as well, like too much. Yeah, that's also can play into the morale in these final 10 games.
Yeah, for sure. And just to remember, there we go. All right, good.
I love that so much.
I
love it.
It's awesome. It's one of my favorite things. I play it sometimes just to listen to it.
That sound is what the founding fathers fought for back in 1776. That's what America's about, baby.
Oh, very, very good. All right. Well, we'll let everybody go. The LA Galaxy playing San Jose up at PayPal Park coming up on Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. I believe it's a free game on MLS season pass, so you can just go on Apple TV and get that game for free on this particular one. And then the Galaxy will be back on Sunday at Dignity Health Sports Park, technically the away team as they play Chivas de Guadalajara for the second game of Leagues Cup. And Leagues Cup is here, so good luck, everybody. Alex, anything else? We good?
We're good.
All right. Alex, why don't you tell people where they can find you and we'll go.
Yes, you can find me on X at ALXRuiz15 for my tweets, for anything LA Galaxy. You can find my Substack, my newsletter at thegalactictribune.org.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter and X, it's at Guesman at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com for all of our podcasts. Go on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, any of those places. Anywhere you can find Google Play Store, your podcast, you can find us. And, of course, go to YouTube, like, and subscribe, all that fun stuff. Almost at 3,000 subscribers. We'd love to have you on board. So make those last 20 go there, and we'll round up to 3,000 real fast. All right. I think that about does it for Mr. Alex El Nino Ruiz. I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.